hell is a teenage girl?
I was born in the warmth of summer's embrace, rosy cheeks, sun-kissed skin, a reminder of the sun etched upon me forevermore. Even as an infant, I did not understand why some greeted loneliness, forlornness, solitary, with wide, vulnerable arms.
When I was 3, I spent my waking hours entranced by the unearthly attraction of natural scenery. The trees tormented those that testified against me, and bowed to me as I levitated across the dew-kissed grass. Flowers, they worshipped me, honored me my every wish. When I was 3, I did not understand why some rotted away in isolation, when the sun and its companions awaited outside, with plenty of love to share.
When I was 3, I could not wait to be 5 years old. That way, when people asked me my age, I could hold up one whole hand. I was truly excited. When I was 5, I stood still as a statue, listening to the resounding echoes like cracks of a whip, of the wounded rhapsody that my mother's eyes sung. She concealed and disguised them with gratuitous shades of taupe. I did not understand why she painted herself in grotesque shades and coated the light inside of her whilst doing so.
That night, whilst I played with my dolls, I dressed them up in their all-night ball gowns and slid glass slippers over their feet. A perfect match. I wondered when I would find my Prince Charming. When I was 5, I could not wait to be 10 years old. That way, when people asked my age, I could hold up both of my hands. It kept me up at night.
When I was 10, I went to my humble abode and laid amongst the mystical flourishes from the silent sleepers below. An ethereal revelation from the eternal trees awakened my dormant potential. For the first time, I adorned the pulsating love of roses, placed petals, placing sweet kisses on my cheeks, painting my skin the same pink of my mother's blush. Later, in the mirror appeared a malevolent visage, the one that haunted my mother. An imitation of my mother as a plea of her praise were the roots of my evergreen plant of my deepest sorrows.
That night I vowed to never blemish my face with subordinate substances. I vowed to never succumb to the companion that lingers, because I was impressionable. I believed my vows, but I would soon realize that all vows are empty promises.
When I was 10 years old, the kids at my school ridiculed and protested and assailed. They were persistent. They declared I could not have my Barbie backpack anymore. They declared it was childish as if we weren't children still. They declared that pink was too girly, too feminine, too dainty, too weak. They declared that as if their femininity was not a gift from all the women who fought for the lives that we have today.
That day I went home and burnt all my Barbies. Iraq flames dispersed across my house. I burnt all the roses. I burnt all the peonies. I burnt all the carnations. While my mother watched with a pitiful smile. And I went up to my room and cried. I cried for all the ladies who fought through wars that couldn't be imagined. I cried for my future child who would have a mother trying too hard to be a man. I cried for myself, for I had to hide my fluorescent self to exist in a world of bleak individuals. When I was 10, I could not wait to be 13 years old. I'd finally be a teenager, and when people asked me how old I was, I wouldn't be able to answer with just my fingers. I'd have to use my voice. I would have a voice.
When I was 13 years old, I was exiled to the trenches of my mind, where echoes of bullets torment and agonize. Crafted in the alchemy, I was destined to be slain. I heard the ricochets of wails, the orchestra of grief, the tears of those who hoped too hard but failed to strive hard enough. The aspirations shattered, dreams dispersed in dust, but an epiphany, an ethereal revelation awakened my dormant potential. I realized I did not want to befriend the companion that lingers, a reminder of dreams left unsung.
Gentle lullabies morphed into melancholy melody. Discordance rattles through my veins, and I realized that I wish I was 7 years old again.
I was 15 when I first vaccinated with the alluring drug that allows me to mask my disposition. I injected my skin with the dull shades of beige that I scorned my mother for using. I decorated my lips with a tint of roses that used to swing sweet sonatas to me. I applied mascara to my eyes so that when I looked in the mirror, I'd have an excuse not to weep.
A combat unfolds in the chambers of my heart. the voices admonishing me to overthrow my opponents, so that my Prince Charming will come and whisk me away, and we can live happily ever after.
The trenches blemished my body, my organs were filled with roses, the thorns cutting into my skin, leaving scars that dictate my worth. The arena took a toll on anyone that dared to come in its path. I was 15 when the wounded rhapsody that bloomed from my mother's eyes turned into a wretched ecstasy that I craved to try.
When I was 15, I wished to be an adult, so I could move out, drink, drive, vote, but yet a small part of me wished to be cradled by my mother. A yearn to visit the sacred gardens that I used to visit every single day. I wished to socialize with my friends, instead of rotting away on social media.
Maybe our parents were right, maybe our phones are the root of all evil, but I cannot help but be bitter, resentful, saddened.
For they are the ones who created the addictive drug that is our phones. I was born with a constant stream of media flowing through my blood. I depend on scrolling like my grandma depends on her IV, because all my life I had cables attached to me feeding me beautifully crafted lies.
When I was 19, I realized that my erratic flame ended up in charred embers. Once a roaring blaze, now a shadow of what could have been.
I persist entwined amidst the trails. I wish that one day my toil will gleam. I hope to be remembered as more than a body lost in a sea of time.
As I grew older, I ultimately came to admit that hell is a teenage girl and that all my heart really desires is to relive my childhood once again without wishing my years away.
It is literally impossible to be a woman. You are so beautiful and so smart, and it kills me that you don't think you're good enough. Like, we have to always be extraordinary. But somehow we're always doing it wrong. Like, you have to be thin, but not too thin. And you can never say you want to be thin. You have to say you want to be healthy, but also you have to be thin. You have to have money, but you can't ask for money, because that's crass. You have to be a boss, but you can't be mean. You have to lead, but you can't squash other people's ideas. You're supposed to love being a mother, but don't talk about your kids all the damn time. You have to be a career woman, but also always be looking out for other people. You have to answer for men's bad behavior, which is insane, but if you point that out, you're accused of complaining. You're supposed to stay pretty for men, but not so pretty that you tempt them too much or that you threaten other women, because you're supposed to be a part of the sisterhood, but always stand out and always be grateful. But never forget that the system is rigged, so find a way to acknowledge that, but also always be grateful. You have to never get old, never be rude, never show off, never be selfish, never fall down, never fail, never show fear, never get out of line. It's too hard, it's too contradictory, and nobody gives you a medal or says thank you. And it turns out, in fact, that not only are you doing everything wrong, but also everything is your fault. I'm just so tired of watching myself and every single other woman tie herself into knots so that people will like us.